All right, welcome everyone. We'll just give a couple more minutes here for everyone to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. First of all, thank you everyone for joining. Today we're going to be doing our custom development webinar, so we'll be going over webhooks and our public API. So this is actually our last webinar in the Quartzy's web integration webinar series. So if you've signed up for this one, you also have access to the recordings for the Benchling, NetSuite, and QuickBooks Online, as well as the Teams and Slack webinars as well. So today we'll be going over an overview of Quartzy's Connected Lab and what that is and the goals of our integrations here, an overview of what a public API and webhooks are. And then we'll be going over two specific use cases, one for reporting with Google Sheets, and then another for communication with Microsoft Teams. At the end, we'll stop for questions and answers, and then we'll go over some resources. And we'll also be sending these slides out after the webinar, so you'll have access to all these resources as well. So if you have questions during the webinar, you can put them in the Q&A box. And then at the end, we'll go over to answer those. All right, so Quartzy's Connected Lab. So what is a connected lab? So our goal with offering these integrations is to help build the connected lab. So a connected lab combines the ability to shop for and purchase supplies, as well as track orders and inventory, all while keeping all the parties informed and up to date. So you can see here, you'll be able to eliminate manual transfer of data between softwares. So like we'll go over later, instead of having to copy paste any information to Google Sheets, if you want to track your requests that way, this data flows automatically into Sheets. And you'll increase efficiency by, again, automatically syncing the information between systems. So another example would be our QuickBooks and NetSuite integrations. So you'll send POs straight to those systems. So you can see this is just an example of some of the tools and softwares that we can integrate with, but it's not all inclusive. There's many more integrations that we can build. Right. So today, again, we'll be going over our custom and third-party integrations. So these are our more custom built, take a little bit of steps instead of the out-of-the-box integrations, like we went over for the Benchling integration would be one example of an out-of-the-box integration. So how it works. So an API provides a predefined set of functions and data that you can request and receive from a system. Whereas a webhook allows one system to automatically send information to another system when a specific event happens. So they're both very similar in the ways that they allow for different systems to exchange information, but they differ in the way that communication happens. So an API will require you to actively request information or perform actions, whereas webhooks are used to receive those real-time data updates when a certain event or trigger happens. So in Quartzy, that event or trigger could be something like a request being marked as ordered, or maybe a new item being added to the lab's inventory. So when that happens, data is automatically sent to the predefined location, and that can be Google Sheets, Slack, Team, Excel, whatever other tool that you're using in your lab. So we do have a developer platform, and we'll go over that here. So this is our developer platform. You can see at the top, we have a couple of different sections. So we have the API section, webhook, guides. We have a couple of samples. So let's go and see our API section here. So we have all the data that you would need to build, custom integrations here. We have the authentication data, and then we, of course, have specific information on each event. So we have inventory item events, order request events, user events, and then, of course, webhooks. So you can see payload data over on the right-hand side. And then any parameters or access or anything that you need is also included in these guides. So webhooks is going to be a little similar, where you'll find the event or module that you're interested in. So say, we're looking for order request ordered. We want to receive webhooks when a request is marked as ordered. So we just find this in the webhooks, and here's all the data that we would need. And then we have some user guides. So these will help with setting up the Teams and Slack integrations. We also have these guides on our help center. So you can find them there as well. And then just other information that you might need while building these integrations, like accessing this information, such as organization and lab IDs. And then we also have samples. So a sample of a curl command here, and then a couple other languages like Node.js and Python. All right. So again, these are just some of the platforms that we can integrate with, but this is not inclusive. We can definitely integrate with many other systems. So we'll go over our first use case here. This is going to be a reporting use case. So you can sync data to Google Sheets. So this will allow for easy tracking, sharing between teams, and managing multiple labs data in one place. So maybe if you want to share some data with folks in your company that might not be on Quartzy, you can set up a Google Sheet and share that Google Sheet with them, and then they can stay informed as well without having to log into Quartzy. So you can flag expenses, deliveries, inventory tracking, data backup. So you can sync inventory items as they're deleted. So you always have that nice data backup. That way you can restore those items if needed. And then managing multiple labs. So you can actually send data from multiple different labs to the same place. All right, so there's just a couple of different requirements here. Today we'll be going over using a platform called Zapier. It's an integration platform as a service tool, and this is used to send webhooks from Quartzy to Google Sheets. So we'll be going over these steps in detail in just a second here. And then you'll want to be a lab admin in your Quartzy lab. And Google, all you need is the access to Google Sheets. An alternative to Zapier would be Power Automate. And we'll actually be going over Power Automate in a little bit as well. All right, so again, how it works is sending data from Quartzy. So for example, an item will be marked as received. So Quartzy sends that data to Zapier via webhook. Zapier receives and formats that data, and then a new row with that data is added to the Google Sheet. So you can see here we have a request that's been marked as received. And as soon as that happened, that line was created on the Google Sheet with all of that request data. So you can see the item name, vendor, catalog number, and all of the data was pulled in. So now we can go over what this setup process looks like for this use case. So we'd start out by downloading this Google Sheet here. I'm sorry, this spreadsheet here. And then we'd import those to Google Sheets. So this is going to include all of the fields and data that can be synced from Quartzy in these headers. So if there's anything that your lab does not need to track, all you need to do is delete that column, and that information doesn't need to be pulled. So you can, kind of pick and choose the information that's relevant to you. So in Zapier, you get started by clicking the orange Create Zap button, and this will lead you to this page that says Trigger. And when you're prompted to select something for a trigger, you will select the webhook option. And then in the event, you'll select Catch Webhook. Once you click Continue after selecting this Catch Webhook option, you'll see a webhook URL. So you'll want to copy that URL and paste it into your clipboard or notes app. And so here's what we'll be using that URL. You'd want to sign back into your Quartzy account and locate the lab that you want to integrate with Sheets. You'll navigate to the Developers tab of the lab management sections, and then click the Add Webhook button. So this modal pops up where you'll then able to name your webhook. This is where you're going to be pasting that URL from Zapier, and then you'll be selecting your event type. So in this case, we only want to select one event type. I'm going ahead and using order request received in this example, because we are only interested in tracking expenses in this use case. And I only want to track items that have been delivered to the lab. And then I'll also select this set null values to an empty string to avoid any errors if those fields that I've selected don't have any data in them. So also in Quartzy, the next step would be to create a fake request or inventory item and then perform the action of the event type that you selected. So in my case, I selected order request received. So I'll go and add a new request and process it to the received status. And then I'll go back in Zapier and there'll be a test trigger button. I'll go ahead and click that button and it'll find this request with all the associated data. So again, back in Zapier, our next step here is an action. You'll want to select the Google Sheets app. And then once that's selected, you'll select the event. So it'll be a create spreadsheet row. And what this does is, again, it adds another row anytime that event happens. So again, when the item is, or the request is marked as received, you'll have a new row on your Google Sheet. So once you've selected that, you're prompted to select your Google Sheets account. So you might need to sign in, and then you select continue, and then you will select your Google Drive, spreadsheet, and the worksheet that you want that data to appear. And then for each column header will be represented as a field here. So for example, item name. And for each of these fields, you'll want to select the appropriate data. So what data should be in this item name field? So here, I've of course selected a data order request item name. All right, and so our next step here is to test the action. So it's already found that test request that we used earlier. So clicking this test action button will actually send this test request to our Google Sheet. So once you have that data in your Google Sheet and everything looks good, you'll just publish your Zap and it'll automatically begin working. So anytime that event happens in your Quartzy lab, it'll automatically run to Google Sheets. and no further action needed. All right. Pausing to see if there's any questions yet. I don't see any just yet, so we'll continue on here. So our second use case that we want to go over here is communication. Specifically, we're going to go over using webhooks to send notifications to Microsoft Teams. So this allows you to prepare ahead for upcoming deliveries, track your orders, and just help everyone stay on the same page. So whatever Teams channel that you select will be receiving these notifications, and specific users can be tagged and alerted as well. So you can see here that Ankur was tagged in this, so he'd receive a notification for this message. So the available alerts that you can set up for the Quartzy shop, you can set up items shipped, delivered, back ordered, or canceled. And then for any vendor, so for Quartzy and non-Quartzy items, you can set up requests added, ordered, and received. So integrating with Microsoft Teams, again, it's not a out of the box, or I'm sorry, it is out of the box. So any lab admin can configure it. You'll just need to use Microsoft Power Automate. No coding required, but we'll go over this process a little bit here. So the requirements, again, you'll just want to be a Quartzy lab admin, and you'll need access to creating a channel in Teams, and you'll also need access to Power Automate. So first, you would just create a Teams channel where you'd like to receive alerts, and then you would use Power Automate to import and configure the alerts and activate the alert via webhooks and Quartzy. So this third step here would be the same steps as we took for the Google Sheets. On the Quartzy side, you just add that webhook and you're good to go. So in Power Automate, this is kind of what it looks like. You'll download the package from Quartzy, and then you just import the package to Power Automate. And then there's a couple of customization options that you can add as well. So this is what it looks like once you've imported that package. And you can see, I've imported the back ordered item package, and this is the default message. So you can add content by clicking this Add Dynamic Content option down here. And you can see you have a long list of functions that you can add. So this is, what's included, but if we wanted to, we could, add URL, we could add the requester name, everything like that. So just as an example, here's our default message, and then I've configured one to be a little bit more customized, deleted a little bit of the text. So, this lab will be receiving this notification instead of the default. And again, just an example of what these alerts look like. So Ankur, all the alerts go to the same channel, so this Quartzy order status alerts, but Ankur was specifically notified as he was a requester for this item. So there's a couple of planned improvements here. So for Teams, there's going to be many more event types will be added. So just a couple of examples here. There will be some inventory specific events. So you'll be able to receive alerts when an item's added, updated, and deleted, as well as when an item's running low in stock. And then for requests, this is something that we've definitely been requested. So when a request requires approval, you'll be able to receive a notification for that as well. And then on the webhook side, we'll actually soon have an official app on the Zapier platform. So that's going to remove some of the steps that we went over earlier when setting up the Google Sheets integration. A lot of those steps will be removed and just be automatic once we have a Quartzy app on Zapier. So all of Quartzy's subscription plans actually include access to both the API and webhooks. All right. So did we receive any questions here, Ankur?
Not at the moment.
All right.
Carolyn, Amy, do you have any questions? on these integration or on this topic, or even other integrations?
All right. Well, if there's any improvements or changes that you would like to see, any alerts that that are not possible to receive now that you would like to see, any questions or anything like that, you can go ahead and ask now, or you can email us at support@quartzy.com. And just to go over some of these resources again, we have our developer platform, which we looked at earlier. I've linked all of our custom development user guides, and as well as our Slack and Teams user guides. So this is going to be the specific user guide distinct to Google Sheets, like we showed earlier. And then again, our support email address, any questions, feedback, anything like that, just send it there and it'll come to me in Encore. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for your time today, and just email us if you have any questions and we'll be happy to answer. Great rest of your day.